Hi guys, so I had someone ask for a video on why do narcissists cheat and why do they specifically cheat if they're married, or why do they cheat with other people that are married. And first, before I begin this video, I just really want to acknowledge all of you out there who are suffering from complex PTSD. This recent COVID-19, the coronavirus could be quite triggering for some of you. If you already have complex PTSD, then these events of the unknown, the anxiety, and the sort of impending doom of the handling this virus and the fear around it can be quite triggering for somebody who's already suffering from PTSD or complex PTSD. So I just want to acknowledge you if you are going through that. There are some really good videos from psychologists on YouTube on how to manage and deal with that anxiety and trauma. I'm really worried right now about a lot of people that are in abusive relationships with domestic violence offenders or emotional or psychological manipulators, especially if you are stuck in the house under quarantine with an abuser. And I'm just worried about the people that are in those situations, and my heart goes out to them. There are some 1-800 lines to help if you are in a domestic violence situation. There are some states and actually some countries that are now prosecuting for narcissistic abuse, people that are psychologically and emotionally abusing their spouses or partners that don't necessarily involve physical abuse. So there is some legislation that's changing in that regard because it is abuse. So I'm going to get back to the content of this particular video. I'm going to kind of go over why they cheat in general, and then I'm also going to get some details of why they might cheat with somebody who is in a relationship or married. So first of all, one of the reasons they cheat is because they need narcissistic supply. That's probably the main reason. They do not care if they're married. They do not care if the other person's married. In fact, it might even be more compelling to them because it's like the thrill of the chase. They cheat because, they'll blame their partner for cheating. They will say that they cheated because X, Y, and Z. This person did that. Just know when somebody cheats, it's never, ever has nothing to do with the other person. It's not about the other person. Cheating is a choice that you make. And a lot of people cheat that are not narcissists. That's true. They could be actively in addiction. They could just be having a situational problem. They could be, even some cases it could be true love or whatever, but narcissists don't cheat for those reasons. They cheat mostly to gain narcissistic supply. They have an incredible sense of entitlement. They are special. The rules do not apply to them. So everyone else needs to be faithful and monogamous, but not them. The rules don't apply to them. They are very, very special. Their partner, their wife, their spouse, their husband needs to be faithful, but they can cheat because, they're very entitled. They often have this inflated ego coupled with this low self-esteem. So internally they have a lot of self-loathing, but then they have this really unrealistic view that's almost like making up for their low self-esteem, where they have this inflated ego and they think, usually wrongly, that they are like incredibly desirable to others. And having somebody, seek them out, especially if that other person's married, remember, they're like, they need to be wanted. They get validation from that. So it's very compelling to them if, the other person is married and they're like chasing after them. The narcissist loves that. They also tend to have poor impulse control. So they have no control over their impulses. They have no control over, they just can't resist. Now, it's strangely coupled with them being very manipulative and calculated. But if it comes to this chance for them to gain narcissistic supply in like sexual gratification or somebody, wanting them or making them feel special, because remember, it's an addiction to feeling special, they typically can't resist. A lot of them also have a pornography or sex addiction. They have a hidden, or sometimes it's obvious, but often they have a hidden pornography or sex addiction compulsion. So they do not, they're always living in fantasy. They're always fantasizing about these, perverse sort of things. And so, infidelity, for them cheating with somebody else, especially if that other person's married, it's fulfilling this sort of, desire for them to be like sneaky and covert and for them to get away with it. They feel like they're like getting one over, and they're really getting off on like the sneakiness of it and the, sort of the duplicity of it. Also, sometimes it's a power trip for them. They like the idea of winning. So if the other person, if they're cheating with somebody who's married, then in the narcissist's mind, they like won because they got that person to, betray their spouse. So in the narcissist mind, it makes them feel very powerful and like very wanted. Like, oh, that person would cheat on their spouse to be with me. I'm so special, right? So it could be that. Also, they often cheat because of sort of dehumanization. They do not see people as people. They do not see people as human, as fully human. So, they dehumanize people. So to them, that married person is just a piece of narcissistic supply. They don't care if that married person has children that are going to get hurt. They don't care if that married person has a spouse that's going to feel betrayed. They don't care if they have children themselves and they're going to hurt those children, or their own spouse, or any of the collateral damage with like the family or the extended family. They just treat people like objects. People are just things to them. The only purpose of their primary source, their spouse, or their secondary source is just to feed them that narcissistic supply. Remember, they have an addiction to supply and to validation and to sort of, that kind of currency, that shallow currency of validation and sort of flattery, right? Also, they typically have either very impaired or no empathy. So they don't empathize with other people. So they don't have remorse or normal guilt or empathy like a normal person would. So for them, cheating, they don't really care how it affects their spouse. They don't really care how it affects the affair partner, the affair partner's children, the affair partner's spouse, because they don't have empathy. They don't empathize with other people and on an emotional level. And so they're not really concerned about how this is going to affect other people, because they just don't have those feelings of guilt, remorse, empathy, or proper shame. They just really don't. And then also, they also tend to think that they can get away with it, right? So they think that they're smarter than everyone, they're better than everyone, they're entitled, the rules do not apply to them, and they have been lying and manipulating in such a cunning way, in such a duplicitous way, their whole lives. So they've honed this craft of being, master manipulator liars. So they think they can get away with it, and most likely they can, especially if there was somebody who, has integrity and who is sort of relatively trusting and trustworthy, and would never expect somebody to sort of lie to their face or manipulate on this grand scale, or to have such a lack of empathy. So those are some of the general sort of reasons why narcissists typically will cheat, right? In regards to cheating with married people, if you're married to a narcissist, most of them cheat. There's a few exceptions to that. And it's very common for them to cheat with married people. And again, part of that reason, which I sort of touched on before, is this idea of winning. So they love the chase, right? So if they are able to get this person to leave their spouse, or to choose like the narcissist over their spouse, then the narcissist feels like they won, they got, you want them more than you want your spouse. And that gives them a huge rush of power, a surge of feeling important. And they just love that. Also, quite often it's just the thrill of the chase. In my scenario, the person that I was with could have had the affair partner before the affair partner was married with children, before he was married to me and my son, so a stepchild. He could have been with this person when they were both single, and both would have been totally appropriate for them to be together. That would have been fine with everyone. It would have saved everyone a lot of hassle, would have saved everyone a lot of pain. But that he didn't want her then because she's not married. There's no thrill of the chase. There's no subterfuge. There's no like sneaking around and getting away with it with their spouses, with their colleagues. Like, they worked for a government subcontractor, so they were able to sneak around and like, go against their security clearances and just like get away with it, right? So it was very, very, the thrill of that was very exciting, I think, for the narcissist that I was with. And so, again, this is an example of somebody who could have totally dated that person when it was totally appropriate before it destroyed families, hurt children, hurt spouses, all of that. But that's just not as fun, right? So, and then the winning this person away from their spouse, right? And of course, that poor affair partner is going to find out that she went out of the frying pan, certainly into the fire. I think her partner was actually a very decent, kind human being. Not perfect, because no humans are, but I think that she'll find out for sure when the narcissist I was with does the same thing to her, because that's they did that in all their past relationships. So it's sort of like their pattern, right? Anyway, just, that's part of the reason. It's like it gives them this thrill that they won, and that they can, get around and they can be sneaky, and they can they really get off on being, especially the covert ones, on being like manipulative and sneaky and lying and like getting away with it. It just gives them a real surge of, of power. Now, of course, a narcissist isn't just going to go after married people. They don't care really, like whoever they can get supply from. So if that person isn't married, it doesn't, they're still going to want supply. They need multiple sources. They've always got multiple sources going on. They're always trying to garner narcissistic supply from, all sources that they can. So it doesn't really matter, if the person's married or not, but that can definitely be like an added intrigue. It adds intrigue for them, especially with the ones that have the comorbid sex and porn addiction, because it's like they're acting out these fantasies that they see in porn, where they're doing these naughty things or getting away with like being very naughty and nasty sort of thing like that. So maybe that's also another part of the reason. So I don't know if this is helpful for you, but I'm just giving it to a video to somebody who asked about that. Again, I'm so sorry if you guys are stuck in situations where you're with the narcissist still, or you're with the sociopath and you're stuck in this quarantine. That is a awful position to be in, and I'm definitely sending prayers out to you, and warm thoughts for some safe passage through these very difficult times. There are, again, quite a few videos on how to deal with the trauma. If you have complex PTSD, again, this can be quite a triggering situation that our world is facing right now. It's difficult and triggering for people who don't have complex PTSD, but if you have it, it's an extra layer of, difficulties coping with those traumas. So there's definitely some good YouTube videos on how to cope with these triggers. So thank you so much, and I hope you are well. I hope you're taking care of yourself. Drink lots of tea, drink lots of warm liquids with lemon and honey, and take zinc. Okay, thanks so much. Bye-bye.